So let's move on to the Township of Ocean Museum.
Sure.
And Peg is in charge of displays at the museum and has a new one coming up.
Actually, the new one was recently installed. We have an
Okay.
event related to the exhibit that I'd love to talk about that is coming up. So
Okay.
it is a timely topic. The current exhibit, which is in the Richmond Gallery, our major gallery at the Eden Woolley House. The Eden Woolley House is in front of the Ocean Township Library, and it's the home of the Ocean Township Historical Museum. And in our major gallery, we have an exhibit called Asbury Park, The History of a Jersey Gem. And it tells the story of the city of Asbury Park from its beginnings right up till today.
Asbury Park has gone through sort of a metamorphosis over the years. I mean, it was, you know, the rich and the famous flocked there at one time, and then it was a family resort, and then it sort of fell on, you know, hard times for a while, and now it seems to be coming back as an artistic center. It's gone through all of these changes.
You're absolutely right, and even more so than I suspected, because I know those of us who have lived here for several years remember it was in the very recent past that Asbury was really down and out.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that we had a notion that, you know, that may have started in the 70s. There were a number of contributing factors. There was the opening of the Ocean Township High School, which changed the racial balance of the public high school in Asbury Park. There was the opening of Monmouth Mall in the early 60s. More recently, Asbury Park Press left the city. There were the riots in 1970. But as I did the research on the city, it became evident that Asbury Park was on a roller coaster ride, so to speak, right from the get-go. It was incorporated in 17, well, actually it was founded, let's say, in 1871 by a man named James Bradley, same man who helped found Bradley Beach.
Oh.
James Bradley was a very successful businessman in New York City. He was born a Catholic but had converted to Methodism. He was a very avid Methodist. And he was not well. He was suffering from some perhaps lung diseases, maybe some bouts of depression, having a hard time in what was then the late 19th century New York City dirty air. And a friend told him about Ocean Grove, which had been recently incorporated. And he bought some land there and came down and was quite smitten with the Jersey Shore, with the concept of Ocean Grove. But remember, he was a very astute businessman, so he decided he would start his own community directly north of Ocean Grove. He bought 500 acres, named it Asbury Park after Francis Asbury, who was a Methodist bishop in the Revolutionary War era and went on horseback around North America converting people to Methodism. And the park was because it was the same era as Central Park, and he thought he maybe added a little glamour to the name, so it was Asbury Park. And then he got investors to help with the financing of the establishment of the land and the layout of the streets, and all of that was premeditated. And he wanted a healthy place. I mean, that was a big part of his motivation, was that he himself was not well, and he wanted the healthy sea, air, and beaches. But he also wanted a place that was morally healthy, a place where families could come. Maybe not quite as strict as Ocean Grove, but he was very, very heavy-handed about restricting alcohol, games of chance, anything he considered unseemly. So the way that it occurred to me as I was reading is that he laid out the streets and he laid down the rules. And the streets are a very interesting thing because he designed the city, so it's kind of a designed community. The avenues are all perpendicular to the sea, to the shoreline. And as you go east down the avenues, they get broader and broader and broader. So the advantage of this in pre-air conditioning New Jersey was that your houses were set back, so that even if you were blocks in from the ocean, you enjoyed the ocean breeze. And of course the illusion was, as you drove east, it just kind of opened up into this beautiful panorama of the ocean. And he very early put down a boardwalk. His first boardwalk was only 2 people wide, and they rolled it up at the end of the season.
Oh my God.
But he restricted any edifice from being built at the foot of any of the avenues. So even if you go to Asbury today, you'll see that that's where the miniature golf, that, you know, so that is more or less still evident that he just wanted, he's very sensitive to how it occurred to the people coming in. So that all of that happened in the early 1870s. The train service was extended to Asbury in 1875, which was a huge boom. Before that, steamships brought visitors into Long Branch or to Sandy Hook, and then liveries brought them in from the steamship docks or from Long Branch where the train service did extend. So the exhibit tells about these early days, the fascinating story of all the restrictions that Bradley put on the city, how as the city became more and more successful, people came with their trunks and stayed for the whole season. And so beautiful big wooden 4-story hotels, block-long hotels, lined Kingsley Avenue and Ocean Avenue, and each of those hotels had their own restaurants, their own music. The boardwalk, the earlier boardwalk being replaced by a broader one, had some bathhouses built along it. Of course, James Bradley advertised clean living. So that not only meant that he put in the first sewer system in the state of New Jersey.
Oh, really?
But he had what he called covered bathing, and he invented or designed a bathing suit for women that covered everything from their chin to their ankles.
Oh,
you know, and it was wool. I mean, imagine in August in a wool getting soaking wet in the ocean. But that was all part of the family-friendly, you know, pure living, safe living, family fun. There were a few amusements. The Palace, I don't know if you remember the Palace.
Oh, yes.
On Wesley Lake. Palace was an early one in the late 1800s. Beautiful carousel. It was called the menagerie style carousel because it had more than horses. It had giraffes, deer, fantastic animals. And apparently those in the know say that the best carvers in the country were represented on that carousel. And I just want to point out that our exhibit has a hand-carved carousel figure that was done recently by a man who does all of the research. It's all historically accurate and hand-carved, a beautiful sea dragon. And that's the first thing you see when you walk in the gallery. It's really special. It's worth the trip just to see the sea dragon and the pictures of how the man, George Hoffman, his name is, carved it and painted it and does all the same techniques as the original carvers. And then, of course, those of us who remember, there were 3 carousels within whistling distance of each other. There was the one in the Palisade, in the Palace Amusements, rather.
Mm-hmm.
There was one in the casino,
Mm-hmm.
and then there was one across Wesley in the Homestead, where the Homestead Hotel was, in Ocean Grove. So they were all right there. But I promised you that the history of Asbury was one of a roller coaster ride. So what was going on is that as Asbury became more and more successful, there was more and more pressure for more and more amusements and a little bit of alcohol. And Bradley fought and resisted and fought and resisted. And finally, in 1903, he gave up. I mean, by the time he died in 1921, he was saying, Asbury Park, I wish I had never seen the place. So as soon as the city bought the boardwalk in 1903, they immediately built the first casino, which was a beautiful wooden edifice and the site of what we know as the casino now on the south end of Asbury, right adjacent to Ocean Grove. They built several pavilions. They had, they put in Arthur Pryor, who was like Asbury Park's own music man, and they had bands and concerts. I mean, it was a wonderful place. More amusements, a big roller coaster ride and tunnel of love kind of thing on Ocean Avenue and on Kingsley. Of course, these, if you can imagine, these big wooden hotels I was talking about,
yeah.
Close together, being lit by fire, open flame, heated by open flame. Fire was a huge menace in this early 20th century, late 19th century. And in fact, there was a massive fire in 1917 that burned blocks of these hotels. And of course, when they burned down, there was kind of a shift away from the cleaner living to more of the amusements and restaurants and bars eventually.
And games of chance.
And games of chance. What we wouldn't consider a game of chance, they would, even like one of those mechanical boxes where you put in your money and the arm picks out, that was considered a game of chance. So they were very strict about that. So I mentioned that Bradley died in 1921, and that was kind of the end of the beginning of Asbury. And there was a new mayor, Hetrick his name was, and he had grand plans for the city. This is a theme through the whole history, from Bradley to even now, just visions, wonderful visions of what the city could be, and then kind of bumping into problems. I mean, Bradley bumped into the businessmen who wanted liquor license and livelier entertainment. Hetrick, when he was mayor, wanted to compete with Long Branch and Atlantic City, so he built a new casino. He built the convention hall, both designed by Whitney Warren, who designed Grand Central Terminal. These beautiful edifices that we have in the city. All of this was done at the end of the 20s, and of course, the city incurred massive capital debt to build these buildings to make it competitive, and then the market crashed. So it entered the 30s and the Depression, burdened by really almost did itself in. So that there's just been these waves of ups and downs and ups and downs, and many people now talk about the 50s and the 60s, which was kind of the heyday of it as a legendary resort for day trippers, that came into the city and saw it. And I just want to mention that the museum is open Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from 1 to 4, Thursday evenings from 7 to 9, and every first and second Sunday from 1 to 4. All of this is on the website, oceanmuseum.org. And on October 20th, we're going to have a history ghost walk in which the spirits of our exhibit come to life, and we collaborate with the young actors in the community, and they channel in the spirits of some of these historical characters and interact with our guests. And inside the Turner Gallery in the library, we have a party, and we're going to recreate the jazz era, the Victorian era, and Connie Francis, our own Connie Francis, is going to sing for us. So it's going to be great fun, and tickets are available through the museum.
Oh, and how much are the tickets?
Tickets for adults and $5 for children, and it's a wonderful bargain and a wonderful cause.
Oh, it certainly seems like it should be a great night of fun.
It is a great night of fun. We sometimes sell out, so it's important to at least call and get your reservation set.
Okay.
So,
Well, we'll hope everybody does that.
and I would encourage you to come and see the exhibit. The museum isn't open during the Ghost Walk, only because we have many more people at the Ghost Walk than fit into the museum.
Yeah.
So you need to come back on a different day and see it. The rain date for the Ghost Walk is November 3rd, but it's not going to rain, so you don't need to remember that.
Okay, we take your word for it. No rain allowed.
Right.
Okay. Well, it sounds like we have some busy months coming up ahead of us.
Always.
With elections and a ghost walk and a new display at the museum.
Yeah.
And we thank all of you for listening this evening and hope that you'll join us both at the elections and at the ghost walk, and that you'll come see the Asbury Park display at the Township of Ocean Museum. This is Marie Curtis for the League of Women Voters, saying thank you, Peggy Dellinger,
Thank
for
you.
bringing us so much information. And to all of you, we hope you'll see us next time. Good night.